So you waited for it and here it is. It's a full up, candid, top down review of Hobie's PA360.
What's up everyone? Thanks for joining me. The weather's not so good, but we're gonna persist. What I'm in today is the brand new Hobie Pro Angler 14 in the Arctic Blue. It's got the 360 drive here. Voila, that's how she works. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Now, we'll also mention this video has been done over a number of different outings. I wanted to make sure I had a good feel for the product prior to starting the video. So, I took it to some open water in Newcastle, I checked out some canals on the Gold Coast, and I went bass hunting in some really skinny water down in Victoria.
So I've used the kayak a bunch of times on the water now, and I've got to say I'm pretty impressed. I'm going to talk about some pros, some cons, some things that you probably weren't expecting, and the different ways to control the boat, because there's a few. And that control and maneuverability is what sets this kayak apart. And whether or not it's worth it, there's a lot of money involved, and it is the most expensive kayak on the market. In my opinion, worth it, but make up your own mind.
Now, I should also disclose, this video isn't presented to you by Hobie, and they haven't paid me to make it, nor have they assisted in it in any way, shape or form. I had to pay for this kayak, and if you ask me, I'd do it again.
Right, so let's start with the kayak. The kayak here is fully decked out for my fishing season to come. Look, it's a Pro Angler 14 in Arctic Blue with the 360 obviously, but it's got the HDS Live 12 on it. I've got a power pole, an XL live well. Got all the Burley Bro covers on the transducer, which is on the Guardian mount below. I'm fully powered by the FPV system in here, and I'll show you some videos of that. But I guess if you're watching the video, you're considering the cost of this bad boy versus the classic MD 180. Is the extra 2100 Aussie worth it? I'm going to leave that for you to decide. So let's talk about the money. So with the classic PA14 that's also still on the market, you're going to get the MD 180 that's going to give you the forward and the reverse. You're going to get the kick-up fins for when you're dealing with that shallow water to prevent the bending of those masts. You're going to get the classic Pro Angler 14 or 12 hull with all the feature-rich stuff that you usually get on a PA. Now, regardless of the 360, ignoring all of that, the Pro Angler, in my opinion, is still the best kayak out on the market. Why? Because it offers so much.
And what does it offer, you ask? I've got a video in the works that'll break down all the specific features in the Pro Angler itself. I'll throw a link down there when it comes out. That's a good segue. Now, we'll also mention that a fair bit of effort's gone into the clip. So if you're enjoying it, smash that like button or hit that subscribe down there and support the channel.
So the 360's got all the same features of that classic Pro Angler. Comes in two wicked colors, but the main difference is that bad boy there, the Mirage Drive 360. And that is what you're paying the extra 2100 Australian for. And what does that let you do? Well, it lets you control the kayak 3 different ways. Let me explain. Right, so classic mode number 1. This is your traditional way. If you've had a Hobie product or an MD 180 drive, this is nothing new to you. So if we have a look at our handle here, there's our rudder left and right. The kayak comes with an additional rudder all ready installed. If we have a look at the arrow down here, you can see it's in the forward mode at the moment. If you want it in the rear mode, quick spin, and we are a standard 180 drive going backward. I guess the key thing here though, is that for that rudder back there to work, you need forward and rear movement. And that's the thing that mode 2 changes up for us.
So the second way we control the kayak is by using the 360 itself. Now consider before where we needed forward or backward movement to turn the kayak left or right to make that rudder authority. Now from the stationary position we can whip the nose around whichever way we want. It's as simple as pointing the 360 drive where you want it to go, and that's where your nose will go.
For some reason I thought I could just put this bad boy handle that direction and it would go that way, and that direction and it would go that way. That's not how this works. The center of pressure or gravity is back here where you're sitting, and if the live well is full, it's even further back. So there's always an arm involved with your power source here, which means that if you set it up in a direction, you'll pull your nose left or right quite rapidly. The thing that you need to know though, is that if you put it in that 9 o'clock position to go left or 3 o'clock to go right, you're not exactly going to strafe left or strafe right. You're going to rotate the nose left or right. If you want to strafe, you're going to need to do some funky trickery that I'll talk about in a little. But it's like having an electric motor at the front of your boat that you control every direction it goes. In the 12 o'clock position, it'll go forward. In the 6, it'll go back. But if you put it in, say, the 10 or 11, what you'll actually get is some rotation and forward movement at the same time, which is kind of handy.
So that's 360 mode. It's a brand new way to control the kayak and maneuver it around structure that we haven't seen before. That alone is pretty exciting, but it'd be 50-50 as to whether that would actually make this kayak worth the money. Luckily for us anglers, there's a third way to control the kayak, and this is where the pro angler comes into its own.
So if you haven't figured it out already, the third way to control this kayak is by using the 360 and the rudder at the same time. Now to do that, you technically need to already be moving forward or backward so that the rudder has got a bit of authority. You can come forward and then strafe right. You can even go behind your perpendicular while still pointing at something in the wrong direction. But you can also do it forward and skid a tail around. You can track in a different direction of where the kayak is actually pointing. Really, really handy stuff if you're thinking structure, oyster racks, poles, Sydney Harbour, boats. It's an awesome way to position the kayak to make that cast that you need.
Now it's one thing for me to talk about how this kayak works, and it's another to actually show you. So I'm going to roll some clips in here for you. So we all raved about the 180 when it first came out, and we were pretty excited about what it could do in and around structure. To be honest, the 360 actually makes that feel quite one-dimensional. I think Hobie's selling point in all of this is that this kayak's going to be able to put you in the positions that you want to be in really easy. So it's going to open up those angles for you to fish, and that's the huge selling point. And to be honest, the thing that this kayak is actually good at. Now it's pretty easy to get the hang of it and work out how to move sideways or rotate around on yourself. You can throw a few pumps forward on the Mirage drive and then tilt the rudder full direction one way, and then after you've got a bit of turn going on, maneuver the 360 drive the other, and you'll get some serious sideways movement going on. You can do some extra tight turns when you think about it and match the rudder and the 360 drive to the same direction, and you'll end up swinging in and around obstacles quite easily.
I think that half the battle with this kayak is actually knowing when not to use the drive. You can over control it and move left, right and center, and then you end up crashing the nose into things. I think it'll probably take 3 or 4 good sessions to actually get used to it and know when not to pedal and when not to maneuver.
So this is a quick clip from the bass sesh. You can see there's a fair bit of wind coming from the left-hand side of the screen. I've actually miscast here and the lure's in the tree on the right. You'll see I come up to retrieve it, but just have a look at the small pedals that I'm making whilst the Mirage drive is facing the left underneath me. You'll notice that the nose doesn't really move much and the kayak doesn't push into the trees. I grab the lure, do a couple of pumps, and you'll see that the nose veers directly into the wind. Now, that's something that we wouldn't have been able to do in that MD-18. I would have had to use a net or a paddle or something to push me off those trees, so I guess that's pretty cool too.
I'll take a quick sidetrack.
These little knobby things are my favourite things ever. I've never had one on that classic style rudder. I'm being told that those knobs are actually available on those.
To be honest with you, if I can get my hands on another one to throw into that side, I probably will.
Now there's also 3 things about the drive that I think I really need to mention. The first, I guess, is a personal preference of mine. I'd really like the handle swapped around, the bigger handle to control the 360 and the smaller handle to control the rudder. And that's really based around the fact that the 360 is a larger bit of mass moving around. So I'd really like the thing with the longer lever on it
to be the thing that controls the larger mass. That in turn would mean a little less fatigue on the wrists, which really isn't a significant factor, but those coming from the classic MD180 type Hobies will notice the added pressure. For all you engineers out there, I guess another way to solve it would be to add like a reduction gear into there. I definitely prefer to keep it simple. The second point worth noting is the simplicity of the drive. Gone are the 50 million cables that wrap around the kayak that you might need to tighten when they get loose and you hear some squeaking. You've got the one global adjustment tool at the bottom of the kayak, and an Allen key comes with it. You just slot in there and tighten or loosen depending on what you feel. So the third point is about the kick-up fins. There's no screw type adjustment to tighten or loosen the fins here again, like there were in some older models. It's just a single pin, and the whole system levers on it. I'm a big fan to keep things minimalistic and simple because there's less points of failure.
So the kayak's got the same skeg as the previous Pro Angler models, and I guess you got a question as to whether you need it or not. I actually quite find it a handy thing to deploy, particularly when you're going straight. With the 360, you can never be so slightly off center, and that could be using a little bit of energy to move you sideways instead of straight. So the skeg's something that's going to help you out there.
Now for somebody like me, it's not really difficult to work out whether I want this kayak or not. I make my purchases to maximize the amount of enjoyment that I get from my time on the water. And if that's what you want to do, the 360 is really a no-brainer. So sure, there's a small percentage of fishermen in Australia that go offshore in their kayaks, but the majority of them are all estuaries, rivers and dams. Now admittingly, there are some waterways that are like bowl shapes, like St. George's Basin, where there's not a lot of heavy structure. But I'd say the majority of fish in those types of waterways sit tight in against structure. And this kayak's really going to help you present that lure into that bit of structure to help hopefully get the fish out.
And will I be buying another one? Yes. That's all I've got to say about that. See you!